Hi there, and welcome to Creatrix, a 5-day virtual retreat for conscious business owners, where together we're shifting paradigms and forging pathways for world revolution through the power of conscious business. During this week together, we're interviewing several incredible, highly conscious entrepreneurs, healers, and metaphysical leaders who are contributing to world healing through their powerful gifts, offering passionate perspectives on creativity, spirit, and conscious business practices. I'm your host for this event, Teresa Pridemore, owner of Sovereign Spirit, and I'm absolutely delighted to introduce you to our next speaker, Kadidja Yansane. Hi, Kadidja.
Hi, Teresa. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. Please, thank you for joining us. Kadidja is the founder of bloomintoyou.com and the creator of the Business Queen Academy, where she helps women entrepreneurs launch, enroll, and deliver their signature coaching program. Over the past decade, she's coached her clients to do things like package their experience and expertise into a marketable offer, get their first and next paying clients, have their first 10K month, and position themselves as leaders in their niche. Kadidja was a women's studies major at UC Berkeley and is a certified coach. She is devoted to empowering women to own their value, charge what they're worth, and do what they love. She's a proud mom of 2, together with her husband and business partner, Mike. They live in the San Francisco Bay Area. When she's not working with clients, she loves to garden, antique shop, and go on walks with her family. And our topic today is claim your seat of power. So as we dive into this, I'm actually curious, the topic, the overall title of our event is Creatrix. And so I'm curious, what does being a Creatrix mean to you?
It's such a good title for this event, but I love the word Creatrix, and I'm someone that's really passionate about words, and I love to look them up and look what they mean. And actually, my first program was called the Client Creation Queen Program. Well, it was initially the Client Creation Program, and I want to emphasize the word create, creator, creatrix, because I think sometimes we forget that we are creators. And if you're watching this, you're an entrepreneur, you have a creative idea, like it takes some ingenuity to be like, I want to bring down these ideas, these visions that I have and make it real. Like if you didn't create this summit or this interview series, then all these people wouldn't be interacting with it and we wouldn't be connecting with other speakers. So like you had this thought and you brought it to life in physical form. So to be a creatrix is to really just acknowledge our creative power as human beings, that have breath, we have vision, and that we can formulate things like clay and create something. I was going to say beautiful, but it isn't always necessarily beautiful, but just acknowledging our innate power to shape shift and move and bend things to make the world a more beautiful place, to engage with it, to learn, to grow. And so I think it takes some courage to like admit that no, you are a creator, that you do have power to create the life that you want or impact change, to influence others, to inspire others. So that's what being a creatrix means to me.
That's beautiful. I love it. Yeah, it's really interesting. I think sometimes it's very challenging for people to really step into and actually claim their power as creators. There's so many things that can stand in the way of that.
Oh, absolutely. I know it was for me. I think that I always felt that I was a creative person and that I wanted to do something and I just didn't know what that was. And it just makes me think about when I was in college, like I really struggled to find out like what I would major in, and I would look around me and sometimes it seemed like I had people in my life who had it figured out and they knew what they wanted to be really early on, and that was not the case for me. At some point, I identified as being a late bloomer. I no longer, hold it in that way. I think that we bloom when we bloom. But it was incredibly, starting my own business. And I think for a lot of people, for me personally, it really helped me to find my voice, because I don't know if you're familiar with the book, The Artist's Way, and how she talks about the shadow artist and how they can be around a lot of people who are creating and like they're longing to create, but they're not there yet. And so I feel like for me, starting and growing my business, even though I didn't know it at the time, really, and I'm going like this because I was able to unleash my my throat chakra in the forms of words, in the form of teaching, speaking, and just all that was inside that was quiet and in my journal and in my notebooks and drawers. Finally became visible, not just for other people, but just for my own expression.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I'm curious what your creative process is like. How do you, it sounds like you had quite a journey coming into your business, and I'm sure, that process of developing your creative flow has grown and expanded over the years. How do you get into that flow? How do you start things? How do you continue things? What is your flow like?
Oh, wow. I feel like no one's ever asked me that question. I'm thinking about it on the fly right now in this moment. I feel like I'm creative in so many ways, and I didn't necessarily acknowledge it as a young person. So when I think back to like being in elementary school, like I've always loved clothes. I still love clothes, but I remember in the 5th and 6th grade, I would wear a tie.
I love it.
And no one else was wearing a tie. I don't know if I saw it on the Cosby Show and one of the kids was wearing a tie, but I remember my dad showing me how to tie a tie and like just having so I know in one way I've always expressed myself through beauty and fashion. I'm very conscious of space, and like no matter what size of place I have lived in, it's always been important for me to beautify my surrounding. Like it's just a part of who I am. And so now when I think about, I don't know that I necessarily think like this is my creative process, but I'd love to share some of the things that I do. Like I've always been a journaler. And I think that, I mean, it's so funny because a lot of times people say, oh, I seem so positive and uplifted all the time, which, I think that my general base is that I tend to be a joyous, happy person, but part of what helps me be balanced is because I journal and I have for like so long, like that has been a very sacred space for me to share everything that's in my heart and that's on my mind. So I definitely am someone who's a writer. So whether that's journaling or lists, I like being in a clean environment. And not that my space is always clean, but I just feel like that adds to my creativity. I love to set a tone or a mood, whether that's through burning incense or playing music that I love. I was listening to a song that I love right before I got on the call with you. It's lighting a candle. It's so I feel like I'm very sensory. So it's important for me to have that around me. That being said, that doesn't mean I won't be creative if, the place isn't clean and I'm not burning a candle. Like I've totally done videos where, it's a mess in the back, but it looks good in the, in the background. So I'm not saying that at all.
Yeah.
But I definitely feel like that enhances my mood, or maybe I want to raise my energy with music. And I think going from someone who was more of a consumer of, or, watching what other people were doing, to being someone that creates my own thing. I think learning from others has been a part of my process, and being like, oh, wow, like, I think that we learn sometimes from modeling or seeing what other people are doing, and we feel like, oh, wow, they're doing it. I thought about that. Maybe I can do it too. And so I still in my life, love to be surrounded by people that inspire me and push me to, and when I say push, I don't mean like push in an aggressive way, but just it kind of inspires me to try things that I haven't tried before. And so just being willing to be messy. I think I was sharing with you earlier that I'm a new homeowner, and I'm gardening in the ground for the first time. Like I had pots and plants before, but I'm loving the creativity of that, of just like putting flowers together and colors together. And I just feel like there's so many ways to be creative. And I think at one point, maybe we used to think that being creative meant that you were an artist, you were a painter or a sculptor or a musician, and then just recognizing that there's so many ways that we use our energy to create a beautiful life. And so there's something about living in an artistic way and that is very inspiring to me.
Yeah, that's so wonderful. I liked your comment about moving from being a consumer to a creator. I feel like that can be a big challenge for people, to step into the role of creating the things that they are observing and wanting to be a part of, and making that shift. For you, like, I'm curious what that pivot was for you, when that moment came that you were like, that's enough, I'm doing this, I'm going for it, I'm going to be consistent and get it done.
Yeah, I think it got to a point where it felt so painful. So like, I'm someone, like, I became a coach in like 2007. And at the time, people didn't even know what a life coach was. It was still kind of new. I can't even remember if Facebook was, existent at the time, but I wasn't on Facebook. But at some point, like when I got onto Facebook, like I started seeing like Facebook ads or different coaches, and I'm like, oh, wow, that's so cool. And so I remember a program that I did it was like one of my first programs, probably like 8 years ago. Because I had my daughter, she was like 6 months old, and she would be in the on the Zoom calls with me. And I remember it was a 3-month program. And at the end of the program, I was so grateful to her. I was so grateful. So like, it was like teaching you how to start your online business, something like that. But I was like, if she didn't have the courage to start her business, put it out there, like, I wouldn't have seen it. Like, I didn't know her. No one recommended me to her, but for whatever reason, I resonated with her and signed up for her program. I was so grateful at the end of the 3 months. And I had an aha of like, oh my God, like the way I'm feeling towards her, I imagine other people, people might feel towards me when I create my thing, but sometimes it's easier to see it in someone else than in yourself. But to answer your question, I think I got to a point, like, it was just painful not taking action. So it's like, I was a coach, I went through my certification, but then I didn't know how to get clients. So I went on and did other things. I was a high school counselor, I did body work. And like, there was always this nagging feeling in the back of my mind that I wanted to be a coach, but I just didn't know how to do it. And so sometimes we get tired of our story, like, I remember I had a therapist say once, it's like, well, when you're sick of it, how did he phrase it? He's like, basically that when you're done with something, you will literally be done with it. And so I think I reached a point where I was done not trying it out. I was done, feeling very shy or reticent to say that I was a life coach. And then part of it was like, I didn't know what my elevator pitch was. I didn't know how to communicate the value of what I did. So that was a piece, but there was also a piece of, who am I to be a coach? Like, is my life together? Can I really help someone? All of that was in the background. And when I took this, just being willing to be like, okay, I'm going to get some help and support with this. And so I told you about one program, but there was another woman before her. And it was a DIY. So like, I would just watch her videos, and she was so inspiring to me. And so I say that to say, it's like, wow, sometimes it's so easy to take our work for granted and what we have to offer for granted. And here I had two people who were doing their business, kind of, even though I didn't know, with the one person, I did know her because I was interacting in her program, but the other person, it was videos that I was watching. I felt so empowered by engaging in the process, and it gave me the courage to try things out and start my own women's group and begin to gently make offers, and then get more comfortable with doing that, and then doing my first videos. And at the time, they weren't live, they were recorded. And so, going through that, I'm like, oh, how am I nervous? And it's just a recording, no one's here. But all of this stuff happened in the background. So to answer your question, it was a very long way, but I just was not content anymore with knowing that I wanted to do something and wasn't doing anything about it.
Right.
So the only choice for me at that point was, okay, is to step into this, try to figure it out. And at least if it doesn't work out, at least you tried. And it's not this nagging thing that like, aren't you a coach and you're not doing anything with it?
That's great. Yeah, oh gosh, I can't remember the Yansane quote. The pain of staying in the bud was
Yeah, it's more painful
than it is to bloom, or I
Yeah.
can't remember the exact words, but
I know what you're talking about.
yeah. We hit that point where, you just have to move forward, and the longer you ignore that, it can show up in weird body things, like
Absolutely.
anxiety, all these things that are calling you to actually take action and move into being that creatrix. So thank you for sharing your story. It's wonderful.
My pleasure.
So why do you think business is a spiritual journey?
Well, I think that there's the opportunity to, especially as a coach, a healer, a guide, a teacher, a facilitator of some sort, I think you become confronted with all of your own doubts and insecurities. It's almost like they become even louder when you go to like share your product, your service. What if people don't like it? Am I good enough? Like the whole barrage of self-doubt comes up. And then you have the opportunity to say, like, am I going to listen to that? Is that the truth? Am I going to let that take me out? Or, we're comparing ourselves. Maybe you're comparing yourself to what you're seeing out there. I know I was. And then you're like, someone's been in business for 5 years. You're just starting out and you're like, oh, my website doesn't look as good as theirs, or they have a bigger following, and just all this comparison to be like, okay, well, this is who my audience is, and not be worried about someone else's audience. Be focused on your audience, be focused on what it is that you want to create. It takes a lot of focus and commitment to keep your eyes on your own test. And so I say that it's a spiritual journey, because I know for me, like I said, some of the gifts of growing my business, it's been an opportunity for me to find my voice, which I've been able to express as a coach, as a teacher, as a facilitator, to create programs. I know I used to see other people creating programs and be like, oh my God, they've got like all these programs and all these books. And I often joke, I'm like, we might look at someone's website or their social media channel and you'll be like, oh my God, they have so many videos, or they have so many blogs, but what did they do to do them? Like, they did one blog at a time, one video at a time. And so it's like all the amazing coaching that sometimes we can offer others, to begin to direct that towards ourselves and literally just put one foot in front of the other and follow where you're feeling drawn. And so for me, I felt called to do a woman's circle. So that's where I started, and I was leading my regular women's circle. And then I felt like I wanted to do some speaking. And so then I started speaking. And so I allowed myself to just keep following that nudge and listening to that. And my confidence grew, and people got results, or they were giving me positive feedback. And so it was just like this loop of, I have the evidence that I'm doing the right thing, versus if you're not taking action, then you're just making up things in your mind about how it's going to go down. And you actually need to engage with life, with your ideas, to see if they're actually going to work out or what needs to be tweaked. And so I just started taking one brave step after another.
That's great. Yeah. And there's that trusting your intuition too, that comes up along the journey, and actually being willing to take action on that.
Absolutely. So for me, it was going from like, I was thinking about doing this, and maybe like looking at other people to validate for me, like that was a good idea. And if their face did something funny, especially if you're intuitive and sensitive, then you're like feeling doubtful. This reminds me, I remember when I started my Facebook page, my business page in 2013, And I showed someone like my cover image and they were like, And then I was like, oh, maybe that's not the right cover image, you know? And so rather than looking out to, and I went ahead and I didn't listen, I just did my own thing. But it's like going from seeking outside validation about what do you think about this to like, well, what is it that I want to do? And so like, what if it doesn't work out? Like, that's okay. What did I learn? How can I tweak it next time? And so the intuitive piece is just so huge, to be still enough and to trust how you're being guided to move, how you're being guided to show up. And I feel like when you listen to that intuition, it's not only fun, you know, so it's like if you're being called to do something, it's probably lighting you up, or you're just having a hunch about something. Maybe you're supposed to meet someone or collaborate with someone. And I feel like the work too is just like beginning to trust that more and more. Getting really good at that versus, even though I feel like I always have identified as an intuitive person, I think that starting and growing my business has helped me to trust it more rather than doubt it.
Yeah, yeah. And there's a lot of this journey is about, you know, growing your confidence and belief in yourself, so that your growth as a person. And I remember you mentioned something that basically, you know, boils down to imposter syndrome and how that can sometimes get in the way. I wonder how you work through imposter syndrome and get to the other side of that. You know, you're talking about trusting your intuition. I feel like that kind of plays into it as well. What would you say about imposter syndrome?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that comes to mind is like being truthful, like being truthful with yourself, and like, what is it that is making you feel like you're an imposter? Like really asking yourself, like, is that true? Like, do you feel like you're an imposter because you don't have the skills, you don't have the experience, you don't have the education? Like, and then I started really doing the unraveling work, like even just like, I know even calling myself as a coach at one point felt like I can't call myself a coach, you know, like, I don't know what I was thinking, like, oh, maybe at the point I didn't have many clients, or I wasn't getting paid for it at the time. And I really had to do the work of, you know, I think the biggest fear is people feel like they're going to be called out and someone's going to say, you're not what you say you are. And so like, that's where you have to be like, okay, well, if people were to ask you, well, who are you? And we need that feistiness to be like, let me tell you who I am. And this is where you're actually doing the inner work of looking at who you are, like asking yourself, like, why, what qualifies me to do this? Like, you wouldn't even desire to speak, teach, heal, whatever it is, if there wasn't something in you that felt like you were supposed to, or you were called to do it. And so I think part of it is taking ownership of all your skills, taking ownership of your life experience, taking ownership of the people that you have helped, whether you pay them, whether they paid you or they didn't pay you. And I think that when we begin to do that work, it softens. But then also I was like in community, whether it's with a women's circle or with a coach I was working with, or in a program, like there's something really beautiful that happens when you're with people who are on a similar journey, and they can mirror back to you, like how incredible you are. And that has been a huge gift in my life, and it continues to be a huge gift in my life. And that doesn't mean that I'm a perfect person. It doesn't mean that I'm a perfect coach and that I never make mistakes, but really beginning to see the value that you bring and to claim your seat at the table. You're like, no, and you know, sometimes I feel like the women that I work with are beyond qualified. They have multiple degrees. They've traveled around the world. Some of them speak multiple languages. Maybe they've had another business. And even just being able to, so this is if you were not to add anything else to your resume or to your experience, like just being willing to look at what I've already done or what I've already been through in my own life, and how that can assist someone. It doesn't have to assist a million people. I often think about, when I was breastfeeding, I didn't need someone who had a kid 30 years ago to tell me about breastfeeding. Like my friend that just had a kid a month ago, she was my expert, right? So I think that sometimes women can feel as though they have to have everything 100% right, to know everything before they can claim that they're a professional or an expert at something. And that is not the case. Like, you don't need to know calculus to help someone with algebra. You did good in algebra, then you can help someone with their algebra.
Yeah, that's a great metaphor. Yeah, absolutely. Some people will, I've heard it said that you really only need to be 2 years ahead of, a person's journey to be able to offer support to them. It's really just maybe a difference of 2 years. And I mean, I find too that everything that happens to me in my life, usually there's some healing that I'm meant to share with other people. So it's very fresh. And the insights that I glean from what I'm going through are meant to be shared with the people I'm working with too. So, your experience, like you said, your friend who breastfed a month ago, her insight was very important to you at that time. And she gave you exactly what you needed.
Yeah, like even if someone gave birth and you have it, and you're just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And they're much closer to the experience. So sometimes that could be of value. Again, I think that people are looking for different things when they're hiring someone to help them. For some people, maybe those certifications are important. For some people, they are not. And I think that as you become more in tune with who you are, what it is that you have to give, I feel like it's matchmaking. It's an online dating site. Like I'm drawn to this way of being, or I'm not drawn to this way of being. And so I think there's some freedom in knowing that you can be who you are. Some people have a style that's more tough love or harsh, and there's nothing wrong with that. And some people feel like they thrive with that. And some people want more of a loving. Some people are able to do the two. And so I don't think that you don't have to be a certain way. You get to be you. And the more that you accentuate that, there's that chemistry, that resonance with the people who are looking for that way of being.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Kind of coming back to the topic of being a conscious business owner, how can we bring more consciousness to business?
So good. I think that we can bring more consciousness to business by bringing more consciousness to our lives, asking ourselves the deeper questions like, why am I here? What's the work of my business? What wants to be expressed through me, through my business? How do I really want to help and serve? Asking ourselves those questions like, what is it that I really love doing? And so for me, I think, doing women's circles has always been a strong part of my path. And so that I include that in my programs. I bring meditation and visualizations into my program. So it's like bringing more of what's important to you into your business. So that could be your spiritual practices, that could be your social beliefs. All of those things can, that's how you feel about the environment, can be what you bring into your business. I actually I took my kids to a farm this week, and I was so inspired by how they are running their business. I mean, we call it a farm, you don't call it a business, but it is a business. They have a farm, they have vegetables that they're selling from the farm, and it's a place for people to gather. They host retreats there. And so like thinking about like, wow, so a business impacts the community. So people come to either host their events there or to bring their children to observe farm life. And so I think that businesses are like the hubs of communities. So it's like thinking about like what impact it is that you want to make. And I don't mean that, I feel like we use, impact a lot. And like sometimes I think what makes it conscious is it being truthful, like who are you and what wants to be expressed through your business, not what people are telling you should be expressed through your business. But I think that there is just also that acknowledging that sacred exchange, that I'm providing this service and in exchange for money. And sometimes people can feel like when it comes to selling their services that they're taking. And so realizing that there's this reciprocity that's happening, that you're providing something of value and service and someone's receiving that. So I feel like there's so much potential. I mean, I don't think every business identifies as necessarily a conscious business, but I think when you think about like your legacy and what you want to lead and how you want your business to play a part in that, if you want it to play a part of it, that's how we can bring more consciousness to our business as entrepreneurs.
Perfect. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. Yeah, it's very interesting how you can weave in your values and your passions into the work and bring more richness to it. And I really appreciate what you said about offering value and, you being that being an exchange, right? Understanding the energy of the exchange as part of the transaction. It goes beyond, someone just paying you for your service. There's just this beautiful energy that can be shared between people, and you can bring consciousness to that exchange versus just treating it like a transaction.
Absolutely. And just you have the opportunity to amplify what it is you want to. So like at this farm, they had a little shop, and I was just noticing the different products that they had, and like something had like beloved on it. And so it's like you could really tell that they value love and peace and eating organic or whatever it is your value is, but like you felt it in the shop. And like just being able to take my kids there, like I thought, I'm like, oh, okay, how do we want to incorporate this into our backyard? What is it that we want to grow? And so we're always impacting people, whether we realize it or not. And we can be conscious and deliberate about how we want to impact people. And speaking of, the vegetables, a woman I know on Facebook, she had all this, fruit and vegetables that she was getting rid of to plant, like transplants. And so, my kids and I, we drove like 40 minutes to get it, because I was like, oh, I haven't seen her in a while and it'll be a fun field trip for the kids. But when I went and spoke to her, like part of her intention with that is that she wants more people to grow their own gardens and, bring more butterflies, more bees. And so I was just like, wow, that is so amazing. So we have the opportunity to influence people in the ways that really matter to us, in the ways that we want to shift consciousness, and the ways that we want to shift the world, the ways that we want to shift even commerce.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that this talk is about claiming your seat of power. How do you help your clients claim their seat of power?
Well, I would say the first thing I do is to help them get clear on what it is that they really want and to really own. Because like sometimes we don't own what we want. Like we want it, but is it okay? We're still looking for permission. I know it was the case for me. And there's something really powerful when a coach or when someone, like they can hear the deeper desire that you have and like hold it up for you so that you're able to like admit that, so maybe I don't know, I'm just using this example, like maybe you really want to get married
Mhm,
and like maybe you feel like you're not supposed to want to get married.
mhm,
That's really what you want. And so you're like kind of holding it as an iffy desire,
mhm,
but being able to mirror back to someone, it sounds like you really want to get married and that's something that's really important to you. And like I feel like when you just are able to make that first step of acknowledging your desires, even just to yourself,
mhm,
even just to yourself, that that's really something that you want, and then you slowly begin to move in that direction, the possibilities I feel like become limitless. So I would say that step one is, if there isn't someone in your life that you feel like you can share what your true desires are, but like even with pen and paper, even in the privacy of your own thoughts, like to admit that, maybe you want to make a certain amount of money, or maybe you want to take, write a book, you want to do this. And so I feel like it starts there first.
mhm,
Um, before you can take any action. And I feel like a lot of the people that I've worked with have helped me give myself permission
mhm,
to take next steps. And I definitely believe that part of my work as a coach is to support others and giving themselves permission to create the lives that they want, to say the thing that they want, because sometimes it's there, but it can feel kind of soft, or you're worried about other people's projections or how they're going to respond. But if you have a place where you can really stand in what it is that you want
mhm,
and feel supported in that,
mhm.
then powerful, powerful action and steps and success can come from that.
Mhm. The key is to let yourself want what you want. And I think sometimes the reason that's hard is either we're afraid we won't get it, and so we don't want to ever admit we want it because we don't think it'll happen, or we're afraid we will get it,
Yes,
and then our lives will change as a result.
yes, yes. So true. And then like, again, I feel like it's that whole thing of seeing the evidence,
Mhm,
or looking for evidence, allowing the evidence. Like I'm always sharing with clients, like, okay, you want to take this step. Now look for the evidence that life, the universe is supporting you.
mm.
We can look for evidence that it's not.
Yeah, right.
But again, where we focus our attention is what we're going to like magnetize and
Mhm,
charge. And so you definitely want to charge what it is you actually want versus what it is you don't want. But you're so right that, like, what if I try this? I probably hear this in your practice too. Like, what if I try this and I fail? But
mhm,
then it's like, if you don't try it, it's this thing that just starts nagging
mm,
at you. And wouldn't you rather try and get information? And I should think even reframing that it's a failure. Like for me, oftentimes I feel like just even taking one step is success, not so much about the result. I
mhm,
had a client who wanted to, like, she had a package that she wasn't offering because it was a higher rate. And so she was comfortable charging this package. And so like our assignment was just to get the words out of her mouth.
mm,
And like that was the success, versus like sometimes we get so ahead of ourselves. We're like, okay, I got to make the offer, I got to get the result, and then that's the success, versus seeing you just moving in that direction
mm,
being a part of the success, because you can't get to the success
mhm,
without that action
mhm,
anyway. And so ironically, the person did sign up. The next
mhm,
person she made the offer to, they did sign up.
mhm,
But I think that there's some like, and then again, that builds confidence. And then that like moves up our ceiling of what we can have, what we can receive anytime we're willing to take bold action in our favor.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely. That being willing to make little steps of progress. It's amazing how these little steps can ultimately amplify, what's available to us, as you say. Yeah, it's really powerful.
Absolutely.
So, what do you think the new paradigm is in business?
Mm. Well, I feel like I talk to a lot of people who feel like they're overwhelmed, they're overworked. And like I literally had someone this week was just like, I've worked this way in the past. I don't want to work this way moving forward in my life. So I feel like the old way is overworking, not listening to your body's signals, pushing past your health needs, not having enough life work balance. And I feel like the new paradigm is like, and I feel like in a way it's like mentally we say this, but don't always live this. But I think that at least in my world, like people want to enjoy life. They want to enjoy their life. They want to spend time with family. They want to go on vacation. They want to have work that fulfills them, not at the cost of their relationship, not at the cost of their health, being solely focused on money and income. And money and income are incredibly important. And it's there to support certain experiences that we want. And so I feel like, you know, I think in the past, there was this huge separation between your work and your personal life. And so it's like, I even feel like being on Zoom more in the last 2 years because of the pandemic, it's like, we're in homes more. And so realizing that you're a whole person, that you have a family, that you have friends, that you want to have time for exercise. So this lifestyle of giving all of your prana, all of your energy to something that doesn't fulfill you and that isn't truly meaningful is not sustainable any longer.
Absolutely.
So I think that the new paradigm is sustainability, is that it honors our bodies, it honors our rhythms, it honors the earth. It incorporates how you can be of service to others. Yeah, it's just, I keep feeling like the body thing feels like the biggest thing to me. But it's not like success at all costs.
Yeah. I find
the bigger vision. Oh, go ahead.
No,
I was gonna say, like, there's success isn't, success is so multidimensional and abundance is so multidimensional. Like we want abundance of health, abundance of play, abundance of pleasure, abundance of adventure, of collaboration versus competition, of that. So like, I'm just even thinking about this experience that you're creating, like it's a collaborative, it's a collaborative experience and everyone benefits. And so looking for ways for win-win versus win-lose.
Absolutely. Yeah. And kind of coming back to that sustainability and working from a place of, taking good care of yourself and honoring your personal needs in your life fully, and not making work such a grind. It enriches the service you deliver. Everything you do is richer, and you bring more of yourself to it. I feel.
Yes, more of yourself. That's just, I love that you said that, because I know for most of my youth, when I had jobs, I just had this, I was like, I feel like I can't bring all of me to the table. And I feel like that's why most people who are watching this or who start a business is like, they're looking for that thing where they can bring their whole selves to it. And so where you can, it doesn't feel performative. You get to be your authentic self, which is such a gift. You are so lucky if you're watching this, because you're so lucky to actually, if you already have your business, or if you have the wherewithal to think that you're going to start your business.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's interesting that knowing that you want something more, I think you're kind of saying that it's a gift to know you want something more and to have that calling inside of yourself. That's a lot right there, Yeah. It's just so beautiful how you weave all this together for exactly what you say, for claiming your seat of power, learning to know what you want, and let yourself go after it and trust the spiritual journey of that you are going to inevitably have on your business. In fact, I think business is one of the best ways to grow as a person. You know, having your own business is deeply powerful healing journey. You get to really experience your power in so many different ways, and to have a conversation with power, and to engage with all the things that might come up for you along the way, that, you know, it affects all the other areas of your life, right? Not just your business.
Absolutely. And I think too, when you have a business, it's like having a business is also having a community, right? Because people purchase your product or your service. And it's like, when I think about, I've met some of my closest friends engaging in a program, or, you know, at a school, and they're my dear friends. And I look at clients that I have, and they're working together to host a retreat, or they're interviewing each other. So like, there's this ripple effect that happens that's so powerful. And you just look at some brick and mortar businesses, like there's a yoga center, like look at all the people that come to the yoga center and now become friends and now connect, and what opportunities come from that. And so it's, if you start a business, like even if that's not your intention, it can become bigger than you, just because you're bringing people together, especially if you're a healer, guide, or coach.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, creating business is an opportunity to create community. I love that you highlight that, because I think it's one of the biggest gifts of having a business is, you know, the community that you get to build around you, and experience and collaborations and things like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love it. Well, this has been a really beautiful conversation. Thank you so much for your wisdom. You have a lovely free gift that you're offering, the ultimate guide to client creation. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yes, thanks again for having me.
Oh,
And
so wonderful.
fun to talk with you.
Yeah.
So the ultimate guide to client creation, I cover the 4 M's of clients, of getting clients. And so we cover mindset, just so that like you're in that space of owning your seat, claiming your seat of power, getting clear on what it is that you want to manifest, how to market in a way that feels authentic to you, and how to monetize your amazing brilliance, because you are brilliant. So when you download that guide, there are going to be some amazing prompts and shifts that I think will really support you.
Wonderful. That's so great. Thank you for sharing that. It sounds really powerful. And I thank you. It's been such a treat to talk with you and have all these beautiful insights shared with us. Really grateful to you, and definitely grateful to everyone who showed up for this conversation. Thank you for joining us and being a part of this, and amplifying everything in your life by receiving this information, and no doubt applying it in different ways, and ways that feel authentic to you. I feel like just there's so many nuggets of wisdom here that will probably help you in your life. And I certainly have learned a lot too. So thank you, Kadidja.
Thank you. Thanks again.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
I'm sorry.
I said bye, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you all. Have a beautiful rest of your day. We love having you here, and look forward to sharing more of these interviews with you. Bye-bye.